Hi, the Tyke from Groovy Entertainment. Today we got a book on tape to play for you. Today's book is Adventure of Pinocchio. Pinocchio Goes to School. It's from 1982, so let's get started.
Adventures of Pinocchio. Pinocchio goes to school. Pinocchio was on his way home to his father's house. He had been gone for months, and he was looking forward to seeing Geppetto again. "From now on, I am going to be good," he said. Suddenly, a big bird flew overhead. "Is your name Pinocchio?" called the bird. "Yes," replied Pinocchio. "Why do you ask?" The bird flew down and said, "Your father is heartbroken because he does not know where you have been. I saw him at the seashore building a boat. He plans to sail around the world in search of you." Pinocchio begged the bird to take him to his father. "Climb on my back," said the bird, and off they flew. They flew all day and all night. Finally, they reached the seashore, where a crowd of people stood at the water's edge. Pinocchio asked a woman in the crowd what everyone was staring at. "A man has gone out looking for his son," she replied. "But now the sea is too stormy, and his little boat is in danger of sinking." "That is my father!" cried Pinocchio. Then he jumped up and down and tried to signal to Geppetto. But it was no use. Soon the little boat disappeared from view. "I must save him!" cried Pinocchio. He dived into the water and disappeared from view. But because he was made of wood, he floated to the surface again. He began swimming out to sea. He swam all day and into the night, but he did not find Geppetto. When morning arrived, he came to an island. He swam to the beach to rest. Soon a dolphin passed by, and Pinocchio asked, "Have you seen Geppetto?" The dolphin replied, "No, he may have been swallowed by the great whale. This whale is so big that it could swallow a freight train." "Mercy me!" cried Pinocchio, who was terrified at the thought of such a monster. Then he asked the dolphin if there was a town anywhere on the island. "Yes," replied the dolphin. "Just follow your nose down the path." Then Pinocchio thanked him for the information and started off toward town. Before long, he came to a place that was called the Village of Busy Bees. Everyone in this village was busy from morning till night. They all had something to do. They scurried about carrying bundles or delivering packages or running errands. "This place is not for me," thought Pinocchio. "I don't like to work." Meanwhile, Pinocchio had grown very hungry. He began stopping people on the road and asking, "May I have a few pennies so I can buy some food?" And everyone replied, "Yes, if you will carry my bundles for me, or, of course, if you will pull my cart." But Pinocchio was too lazy. He replied, "Pulling carts and carrying bundles is work for a donkey, not for me." Finally, in exchange for something to eat, he carried a bucket of water for a woman. Suddenly, he realized that the woman was really the good fairy. "Would you like to become a real boy?" she asked. And Pinocchio cried, "Oh, yes!" The fairy said, "Then you must first learn to work hard, to obey, and to tell the truth." Pinocchio replied, I will begin tomorrow morning. So the next morning, he went off to school in the village of Busy Bees. At first, the children teased him because he was a puppet, but before long, he had made many friends. Unfortunately, some of his new friends were bad boys. Instead of studying, they liked to get into mischief. One day, they stopped Pinocchio on the way to school and said, "Come with us to see the great whale at the seashore." Pinocchio wondered if it could be the same whale that the dolphin had spoken of. "Is it big enough to swallow a freight train?" he asked. "Yes," agreed the boys. "Come on." But Pinocchio replied, "I will go this afternoon, after school." "This afternoon will be too late," said the others. "A whale like that will not wait around forever." Then Pinocchio said, "But what about school?" His companions laughed and made fun of him. "School is for donkeys," they cried. "Forget about school and come with us before the whale goes away." Finally, Pinocchio agreed to skip school and go with them. But when they got to the seashore, the ocean was quiet and still. "Where is the great whale?" asked Pinocchio. At once, his friends began laughing. They had tricked him. They had made up the story about the whale just to make him miss school. Now Pinocchio grew angry. Before long, there was a big fight. Soon the boys started to throw their books. When they had no more books of their own, they seized Pinocchio's book bag. One of the boys took out the biggest book and threw it with all his strength. But instead of hitting Pinocchio, the book struck one of the other boys. At once, everyone ran away, leaving Pinocchio to care for the injured boy. Before long, 2 police officers arrived. "My classmate has been hit by a book," Pinocchio explained. When the police asked whose book it was, Pinocchio replied, "It is mine." After the injured boy was sent to the hospital, the police took Pinocchio by the arm and said, "Come along with us." Pinocchio was being arrested. A sudden breeze blew the puppet's cap off. He asked the police officers if he would be allowed to get it. "Yes," they said, "but be quick about it." So Pinocchio ran after his cap, but he didn't stop running when he reached it. Instead, he ran off toward the seashore. At once, the police sent a huge dog to chase after him. Pinocchio jumped into the water and began swimming away. The big dog followed after him, but the dog, who could not swim, began to drown. So Pinocchio turned around and pulled him back to shore. "You saved my life," exclaimed the dog. "Perhaps I will be able to do the same for you someday." Then he wagged his tail as the puppet went back into the water and swam away. Pinocchio swam along the rocky shore until he saw a cave. A thin column of smoke coming from the cave meant that there was a fire inside. "I will go in and dry off," thought Pinocchio. But when he swam near the rocky entrance to the cave, he was caught in a net along with hundreds of fish. An ugly monster with green skin pulled the net out of the water. He picked the fish out one by one and rolled them in some flour. Then he tossed them into a big frying pan. Pinocchio was left in the net until last. Finally, the monster said, "What kind of fish might you be?" Pinocchio cried out, "I am not a common fish. I am a puppet." "A puppet fish," said the monster. "I never ate a puppet fish before." Then he covered Pinocchio with flour and prepared to drop him into the frying pan. At that very moment, a dog entered the cave looking for something to eat. It was the same dog that Pinocchio had saved from drowning. "Help!" cried Pinocchio. "Save me!" The dog recognized Pinocchio's voice and sprang into action. He grabbed the puppet from the monster's hand and raced from the cave. When he had reached safety, he set Pinocchio down. "First you saved me from drowning, and then I saved you from the frying pan," said the dog. "Thank you, my friend," said Pinocchio. After he had left the dog, Pinocchio came upon an old man. The puppet said, "Have you heard anything about the boy who was injured on the beach?" The old man replied, "He was sent to the hospital, but he is all right now. He had fallen in with a bad companion named Pinocchio. Everyone says that Pinocchio is disobedient and a good-for-nothing." "That's not true," cried Pinocchio. "I have heard that this fellow named Pinocchio is a good boy, who always does what he is told, and who tells the truth at all times." As Pinocchio told these lies, his nose began to grow. The more he lied, the longer his nose became. He tried to hide it, but it was too big to hide. Then Pinocchio corrected himself, saying, "Of course, there is not a word of truth in all that. I myself know that Pinocchio is a lazy boy who never behaves or does what he is told, and who tells so many lies that they cannot even be counted." At once, the puppet's nose returned to its usual size. Then Pinocchio walked very slowly back toward the fairy's house in the village of Busy Bees. He kept wondering what the fairy would say. Would she forgive him for running away? "I deserve whatever happens to me," he said. "I always say I will be good, but I always seem to get into mischief instead." Night had fallen when he finally got to the good fairy's house. He knocked gently on the door. After a long time had passed, he heard someone open a window on the 4th floor. It was the snail who kept house for the fairy. "Let me in," called Pinocchio. But the snail whispered, "Shh, you'll wake the fairy. Wait there, and I will come down and open the door." Of course, snails are never in a hurry. 2 hours passed. Then 2 more. At last, Pinocchio lost his patience. He tried to kick the door open, but his foot went right through and became stuck. So Pinocchio spent the rest of the night standing on one foot. At dawn, the snail finally opened the door. Pinocchio cried, "Help me get my foot unstuck." But the snail went away, saying, "That is a job for a carpenter." Later, the snail returned with a breakfast tray and said, "The fairy has sent this to you." But all the food was made of plaster. By now, Pinocchio was so weak from hunger that he fainted. When he awakened, he was lying on a couch inside the good fairy's house. The fairy said, "I will forgive you once more, Pinocchio, but you must promise to try harder than ever before to be good." Then Pinocchio said, "I will go to school and study hard and do exactly what I am told." And that's exactly what he did. Pinocchio behaved himself for the rest of the year, and he even became a very good student. Then one day the fairy said to him, "You have been so good that tomorrow you shall stop being a puppet and become a real boy." Pinocchio could hardly believe his ears. At last, he was going to become a real, live boy.
So, that was the Adventure of Pinocchio. Pinocchio Goes to School for 1982. So if you like, subscribe, share, and comment, and have a groovy day with another video coming out real soon. And our next book will be Willie, Gabby Bear Tell a Story. Willie the World's First Uniscope.